Hi, James. Thank you for having me on, and I would be very happy to offer assistance in getting more voices from Gaza on if you're committed to it. I mean, it's hard but not impossible,
You're
and
on.
I think it's an important part of the conversation, hearing voices from Gaza. So
It
thank you for having me
categorically
on.
is. Stay on the line. When we've finished, we'll take you up on that offer, and we'll thank you for it. You were there visiting family, I think, when first of all, when the terror attack on October the 7th occurred, and then when the consequent Israeli attack on Gaza followed. What was your first moment of realization about what you had found yourself caught up in?
I think it was I guess realizing that the rocket attacks, going from Gaza to Israel were quite numerous, going on for about an hour, and that's when I think that was the moment of realization. Then after that, kind of just seeing some of the footage, I guess, coming through from the border of like Hamas fighters kind of attacking the Israeli military across the border, and we left our home immediately on the 7th of October because my mother's apartment in Gaza is on the beach and it's a very exposed location. So anyone that lives either on near the sea or near the border, they're the first to evacuate. And
And where do you
they've
go?
been
Where do you
they've been
go?
so there's been a bombing next to our apartment that brought down many of our windows. We went immediately in the immediate sense. We went to an apartment that belonged to a friend of ours nearby. Then then kind of it was a succession of evacuations from that apartment to my father's place, then to a hotel in North Gaza that we thought might be safe. It wasn't. Then on the 13th of October, based on, I guess, this order from the IDF that was, not a legal order, but we were terrified for our lives and safety. So we followed the instructions to go south to Khan Yunis, where my late grandparents' house is, and sheltered in Khan Yunis for close to 6 or 7 weeks, actually. Um, and I guess like every step of the way, we were taking what we felt we might need to survive, and kind of building building I guess household infrastructure in
Yes.
terms of like ability to cook, in terms of having like a water storage, and um and furniture. And every time you move, you have to carry that with you, or a subset of it, because it's not always possible to take everything and get everyone out at the same time.
And what was the? I mean, this you were moving in a sea of people, a tide of. You were part of a tide of people making similar journeys, making similar movements.
Yes. The close to 90% of Gaza's population has been on the move in the last 2 months, and currently something like almost close to 2 million people are now out of their homes, and it created massive strains on people in terms of being able to find the like water supply. The water supply was cut off by Israel very early on. Being able to The electricity was cut off, and water relies on electricity to be pumped, and then accessing basic necessities like food, in terms of like flour. Like the price of flour went from 40 shekels before the Israeli bombardment up to, some people are paying close to 1,000 shekels now for a bag of flour, just to give you an idea. Um, and it's this. There's obviously the massive toll in human life that some experts in genocide have stated that Israel is conducting a genocide, and the Israeli officials have been making genocidal statements, like quoting Netanyahu, quoting verses from the Bible saying, "You must kill every man, woman, and child, every donkey, destroy their houses."
And I mean, you know, I have to remind you that some experts in the field of genocide have also disputed the use of that word in this context. But it is increasingly hard to challenge the use of the word ethnic cleansing, because the movement of people, your family and you, for a period among them from an area where they have lived into an area where they will seek shelter, while the area in which they lived is rendered uninhabitable. I think that's something that perhaps we're missing over here, is that these are areas to which nobody's going to be able to move back anytime soon, and that presumably is part of the plan.
Yeah, so I think the International Criminal Court and the International Court for Justice will ultimately tell what is happening. But ultimately, the problem is whether it is genocide or mass killing. In the end, hundreds of Palestinians are being killed every day. A child every 10 minutes was
nearly 10,000 children in total already.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think ultimately it doesn't matter what we call it. Ultimately, it has to stop. We need a.
Well, it matters. I don't want to get bogged down in the semantics, but it matters in the context of Holocaust and previous genocide, and it matters in the context of what words really, really mean. But we know what numbers mean, and we know that nearly 10,000 children.
I understand semantic or legalistic differences, but like in the end, I think it's important to not dismiss. I'm not saying that you're dismissing, but like, you know, by dismissing the term genocide, for example, does that belittle the deaths of close to 22,000 Palestinians now? I mean, Israel claimed that the 7th of October was a, in quote, genocidal attack. So it's kind of why?
Well, look, I said I didn't want to get bogged down in this, and if someone did that to me in this context, I would challenge that use of that word in the same way. So let's focus on actions rather than words, if we can, and the simple fear, the visceral fear under which everybody lucky enough to have a roof over their head continues to live.
Absolutely, not knowing. Like now, people have been asking me, how does it feel to be back in the UK? And I'm like, well, I'm elated, but I'm also devastated to be here. I am safe now physically. I'm not mentally safe,
no.
And I am so fearful for my friends, my family that I've left behind, and I worry what the ping of my phone will bring in terms of like news, but I also like worry for the intense struggle for survival that everyone is experiencing. You know, winter is here now. So many people are in inadequate shelter, in overcrowded UN schools. Like friends of mine, that are staying in classrooms that have 50, 60, 70 people in them, 700 or 800 people to a toilet block. And the fear that we have is that as Gaza has been made uninhabitable, by Israel's attack, as hospitals have been rendered clinics rather than hospitals, as basic civilian infrastructure has been bombed, basic infrastructure of governance like the parliament building, the courts building have been destroyed, that then raises the real fear of Palestinians in Gaza being pushed into Sinai and not being allowed back to Gaza. But then add to that, people who are now living in Gaza will be at risk of death from disease, and easily treatable diseases in a normal context. The public health officials have warned that the death toll from disease could dwarf that from the bombing, and Israel and Israel's supporters, such as the UK government and the US government and UK Labour Party, who've not called for a ceasefire, are complicit in that.
We're going to run out of time. You're welcome to come back tomorrow if you can. I don't want you to feel in any way curtailed or cut off.
Sure.
But before you do go, the leaflets have now started falling in Khan Yunis, telling people where do they go next? Because you've described an exodus that your family undertook. Where do they go next?
So when I left Khan Yunis, and Rafah or the land to the west of Khan Yunis were the only options. Rafah is massively overcrowded, and the
Mm.
land to the west of Khan Yunis is agricultural sand dunes that cannot support life. There is a real fear of being pushed closer and closer to Sinai, and that needs to stop and not happen. We need a ceasefire immediately and to work towards a political process, a lasting, sustainable political process. We need to be realistic about wanting peace and working towards it.
Mohammed, as I say, I'd love to talk to you again if that's not the wrong verb to
Yeah,
use.
same.
But I feel
Okay.
that there is some. I know you have other appointments, but Mohammed Ghalayini, a scientist from Manchester, just returned to the UK after spending 2 months under bombardment by Israeli forces